Alright, here we go. Welcome, good evening. In the background you're still watching Rocket Science by, I think, Bauknecht. Maybe the Electronic Knights? Not sure. Running on my Commodore 16, which you will see in a minute. And the reason why I'm running this right now is to test and see if the C16 is still running. And as you can see, it works perfectly fine. The TED chip, the video and sound chip is working fine. The CPU is working fine. It loads from disk, everything's fine. However, you came here for a different beast. Or not so different after all. Which is this thing here. This is the Commodore Plus 4, which is another machine in the TED range, or the 264 range. The C16 being the cheap version with only 16 kilobytes for whatever reason. Mine is upgraded to 64 kilobytes because then you can run basically any Plus 4 program. The Plus 4 comes with 64 kilobytes. The whole range of machines basically flopped. They were not very successful because there was already the C64, and I will have to tune this down a little and also kill some process. 1 second. Where did I put it? Over here. Let's kill all the unnecessary stuff. Alright, that's better. As I was saying, the C16 and the Plus 4 were pretty much dead on arrival, at least in the US and Western Europe. They had a bit of a heyday in Hungary, Poland and the Czech Republic, I think, somewhere along those lines. Basically Commodore shifted all the unsold machines around 1990 towards the Middle European and Eastern European states. Because they didn't have home computers back then, before the wall came down, and they could sell those machines there, and there's a thriving community around this. And the interesting parts about the TED chip is that it supports quite a lot of colors. Over 100 colors are possible, so the graphics look more colorful than on the C64, but it doesn't have any capabilities for sprites, so there's a lot of limitations. All the sprites that you see in games are basically software sprites done with the character graphics or something like that. The color RAM is also very limited, so you have to switch the colors from more or less scanline to scanline, from what I understand. So yeah, that is kind of a lot of limitations. Plus, the machines were too expensive basically, because you could get a C64 for the same price more or less. The Plus 4, so this machine here came with 4 built-in applications that were supposed to be good for like small offices, but of course there were other solutions that did that better, I guess. And the C16 and the C116 were still too expensive and too proprietary. And people just went with the C64 or other things. So, as we can see, okay, this seems to be hanging, or I might need to swap the disk around, let's see. But it might just be hanging. No, turned off. Okay, it crashed. Never mind. That is the signal that we should start working, actually. When you turn on a Plus 4 machine or C16, you are greeted by this, which looks pretty similar to what you would see on a C64, except you have more basic bytes free due to the memory layout, and it has a newer BASIC. It has version 3.5, which comes with new commands for disk interfaces and other stuff. But that's not what we're here for. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch to the overhead iPhone camera. So I'm gonna turn off the HDMI capture for the moment, switch to this here. I'm switching off the C16, which also gets actually pretty warm. They had some heat issues on these as well. I'm gonna unplug the video, I'm gonna unplug the power and put this aside for the moment. Very, very, very gently. Tonight's drink, not sponsored in any way, is Fritz Cola, which is a Coke with a lot of caffeine, so I hope I will stay awake and alert. That's that. And as you can see, Commodore was saving money on everything that was possible by reusing the bread bin case from the C64 and the VIC-20. It's the same thing, it's even the same keyboard, although with different printings on it, which is fine, I guess. Yeah, it's basically the same layout. There are a few differences. The Datasette port, it doesn't have the user port. It does have a cartridge port. Let me show it. Here's the cartridge port, but the cartridge port has a different layout and pin header. There's the RF modulator, there's the video out, which is the same as on the C64. FastCheck42 says, how do you get such a clean video capture? My attempts with my Plus 4 always have weird color fringing. That's probably because I'm using an S-video cable, which has better video output, I would say, and you're probably using a composite output, which tends to do color fringing. And it also depends if you're in PAL or NTSC country. I'm not sure where you're from, so that could be a reason. I think NTSC might be more prone to color fringing, perhaps. Otherwise, I'm using a very cheap S-video to HDMI converter and a very cheap HDMI capture device on USB. So that's nothing fancy, nothing special. The serial port is the same as on any other Commodore VIC-20 or C64. You can just attach the same drives. It had its own drive, the 1551 I think, which was a little bit faster, but it's very, very rare and hard to come by. But I'm using just a good old 1541. Cassette port was different, as I said, but I think you can build adapters. This here on this end, they also had different keyboard joystick connectors, which looked like this, mini DIN, and a reset button. That's something new. But this adapter here lets you play with regular C64 or Atari joysticks. Just has some buffer chips because the joystick ports are actually wired directly to the TED chip, only with, I think, a bunch of diodes for protection. And you don't want that. So there are some buffer chips. If they break, you can just replace them. And I don't need the special Plus 4 joysticks, basically. We're probably gonna open up the C16 later as well, because I'm already assuming that perhaps the CPU on the Commodore Plus 4 is dead. We will have a very short look. If it's turning on now, maybe it healed itself magically, then it would be a pretty short stream, perhaps. But I doubt it. I think this is probably really dead as a doornail. Again, here you can see the joystick ports. Here they are on the back. The video output serial is over here, and there is the cassette port. And a weird square power supply, which means I have to use the original power supply that came with this, which is one of those door stop thingies, like on the old C64, like these ones here. And they suffer from the same design problems. The 5 volt rail can go berserk, so we will test before actually plugging it in. The 9 volt rail will be a little bit high because it's unregulated from what I know. Without load, basically. And I'm gonna try and not break anything here. I'm gonna go for AC right now, and we're gonna test, and I'm gonna try not to short anything, which is why I'm holding this a little bit awkward. And we should see something along the lines of 10.8 volts AC, which is okay. Then we're gonna check the other voltage. That should be the 5 volts, could be plus or minus depending on if I'm finding the ground correctly. -5, it says -5.16. A tiny bit high, but I'm gonna say this is probably okay. So let's put this aside for a moment. Unplug it once more. Now we're gonna plug in the video just to make sure that we really have a dead machine. Of course, I would love to have this just working and we could just play stuff. Josep Retrobit says the C16 has the best looking case from all breadpin designs to me. Yeah, I think so too. And the Plus 4 is also gorgeous, I think, because the whole black and rainbow design, I love it. It's just so cool. Let's put the brick up here. Let's plug this in here. That would be fun if this would work actually. Let's enable the capture again. Here we go. It's blue at the moment because there's no signal. This thing is off. There's also an LED, which you will see later. And then we get a black screen, but we get a video signal, which I think is a good sign, because I think this means that the TED chip, the video chip, is alive, and the TED chip is harder to replace. There's no replacement for that right now that you can get. There are at least, I think, 2 projects working on that, but they haven't gone public with something that you can buy or make yourself. They posted some progress and it seems to work pretty okay, I think. But as usual, it's a hobbyist project, and let us try and put this onto a bit more stable ground. I will have to readjust this here. My finicky tripod setup. Sorry for the rumbling around. Alright, so that's that. This machine has not been opened, from what I can tell, before. So we will be the first to look inside. Let's get a bit more lighting here. And I haven't never opened the Plus 4 before, only the C16 obviously, for the memory upgrade. And there is one seal here. It's a German machine. It also says made in Germany. So I think the Commodore plant here in Germany was in Braunschweig. The PCBs were made usually in Hong Kong or something like that. But then all the different parts were assembled here in Germany for the German or European market. So I think there are only 5 screws from what I can tell. 2 at the bottom, 3 at the top. Let's dig in. I also printed out the most important parts of the service manual. We might have a look into the PDF later. There's the pinouts of the TED chip and the CPU. So first we will measure something like the supply voltage. That's hopefully more or less 5 volts, as we have seen. And then there are troubleshooting aids for if there's no video on screen, check for 5 volts, check for oscillation at pin 14. I also have, for that exact reason, I have my oscilloscope running, and I managed to install a software which lets us see what's going on. Currently it's running in test mode here, and I hope it will update. We'll see. It should work. I'm gonna turn this off for the moment because right now we don't need it, but when we do some measurements, you can have a look as well, basically. Okay? But now let us open the case and break the seal, most probably, because I think I can't open this without breaking the seal. So these screws look very familiar to the other Commodore machines. I actually didn't know about the C16 and Plus 4 until a couple of years ago. I did read in some magazines where some people were talking about Plus 4 and C16, but I never seen them or read about them, because that was like in the mid 80s when it came out, like 1985, and I didn't have a computer back then, or was too little. I was like 6 years old. And only a couple of years ago I heard about this stuff and also saw that in the demo scene there are some pretty neat productions for this machine. It's still like a bit, there's not much as much stuff as for the C64, for example, for obvious reasons, also because there are way more C64s in the world than C16 or Plus 4. Okay, let's see how this opens up. Okay, this comes apart nicely. I think I will have to probably cut this seal, which is a bit sad, but yeah, I think I can't get around that. And we'll be very, very careful. It's relatively clean, but it has been used from what I can tell here. Okay, there's the keyboard. I'm gonna try and unplug the keyboard ribbon cable. Okay, here we go. So that's the keyboard matrix from the bottom. The keyboard cable looks fine. There is a little bit of dust in there, but not super bad. Okay, I will probably use some compressed air to clean this up. So I can already see a couple of things. I can see that, okay, this is the 8501. It's the second revision, basically, of the CPU. The original one was the 7501. The 7501 using a slightly different production process. Under this can is the TED chip. And this is the RF modulator. Here are all the ROMs, the application ROMs, as well as BASIC and the kernel, I guess. And there's some logic chips here, LS139, 175, 27, and there's a 6529B, whatever that is, I don't know that. MOS labeled, 6529, probably also logic chips. But made by MOS actually. There's another thing, the 8551. I will have to look that up. Haven't heard about that. And here is the RAM, 8 chips, 4164P, 115 nanoseconds, which is fine. I would have a couple of those here that we could use as replacement if it were bad. But my actual guess is that this is bad. We could also start reseating the chips because something might be corroded. This one here looks like it's slightly at an angle. Could be useful to reseat that and use some deoxit on the socket. Might be useful. It's a bit dirty. It has seen action, I think, and it has been in storage for quite some time, I guess. So, date codes are late 84, 5284. The 8501 is week 5084, which seems to suggest, I mean, this thing came out or was shown off in 1984, I think. So this is actually a rather early version, I would guess. Yeah, let me quickly go outside of the room so we don't have all the dust in here and spray some compressed air on it. This will take only a minute. because otherwise we will have a lot of dust in here and I will be coughing a lot. Okay, don't even need that. So this is looking much better. Okay. So what we can do for sure is to follow the instructions of the troubleshooting manual. I think that would be a good idea. And let's have a look at it. Visual inspection is critical in this unit. The upright position of many of the components used on the board can create problems. It is possible for them to be shorted to the shield or to each other. Oh, okay, that sounds brilliant. Make sure they are evenly spaced and do not contact the shield. Areas of the PCB particularly vulnerable to this problem are... I mean, it doesn't really have a shield, does it? Well, the keyboard matrix is mounted to something metallic. But what are they saying? Bottom right corner, the capacitors. Yeah, those. They are more or less bent flat here. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. We could replace those with much smaller ones. I do have... Did I put them away? I do have... I have these decoupling capacitors here in much smaller size, so we could replace them if needed. Ah, there's also a metal shield at the bottom. I can see this here. It's soldered here to the board, and otherwise it uses clamps. Nothing we couldn't fix or change, let's say. Okay. J1 to J6, which are these jumpers here, they could short. So what we could actually do is to power this up once more without the keyboard attached, so it can't short to the keyboard, basically. That could be one thing that we can try. The ferrite beads, top left, these ones. And the center twisted caps, just outside of RF can. Is it the RF can? Not sure. Well, anyway, I don't think this is a problem, but we can quickly check if this is actually the problem or not. And then we can also measure on the CPU if there is any voltage applied. And then we can also start probing with the oscilloscope, actually. So let's turn on the display capture again. Let's make sure that this is all right here. We do get the black screen, and that's that. Anything getting warm? Because I think the CPU probably will get warm. Anything getting very hot? No, not that I can see. What we can definitely do is check the CPU. The CPU has the VCC on pin 5, which is fine. So let's put it into DC and turn off the capture, I think, so that you can see what I'm doing, more or less at least. Sorry, I will move myself to the top of the screen. No, not like this. I will have to go here. Hello? Sorry, this is taking... No, this is bad. This is... I'm moving the wrong thing. Where's the webcam? Here's the webcam. I'm moving myself to the top right. So now you can see better, I think. Hi Guillermo. Welcome to the stream. You can see what's on there, I think. Let's move this a little bit further to the left. So pin 5, we're counting from the top left. This is the top notch. It's feeling pretty cool. So I'm not sure if it's even getting power. I'm gonna ground myself here on the screw because I can't slip away from it very easily. And this here should be 5 volts, but I'm not getting anything. That's interesting. That could already be a problem. So there's 6.2 volts on, is it the AC here on the fuse? Interesting. So there's 6.2 volts on the fuse for whatever reason. Interesting. 6.2 on the power switch. Very, very interesting. What does this mean? That's weird. That means we don't have VCC on the CPU. Could already be a problem. So what do they say in the troubleshooting? Absolutely no video on screen. Check for 5 volts. Question is where? If not, check the fuse. On the fuse I see 6.2, which is a bit high. Check for twisted or bent caps, 5 volt, short to ground. Check L1. Where is L1? L1 should be an inductor. There it says L2. Where is L1? Prize for anyone who gets who finds L1 first. Where is L1? I hope I'm not holding my head into the camera so that you can try and find with me. So here it says L2, that's the big inductor here. There are 2 capacitors here, the orange ones. There are some electrolytics. But where is L1? L2 I see, L1 I don't see. I might need to have a look at the... Guillermo says, I remember the topic, something with the power supply. Yeah, basically it's a black screen and I want to check out if it's the power supply or the CPU. Often the CPU goes dead. But it might be something with the power supply. The power supply measures 5.1 volts on the 5 volt rail, which I think is good. Could be bad, but I think it should be fine. Let's actually measure that again. Let's do this. Let's go here and we should be able to measure 5 volts on the lower pin, I think here. Maybe here. This here should measure something completely different. Oh, it might be isolated. That's probably why I'm not getting anything there. It might be isolated. That doesn't help. That doesn't help. Okay. That means that doesn't help, and I'm anxious to probe from the back side of this because it should actually work. I mean, it could be. What's weird is I do get the red light on the keyboard, and I think red light plus we get video sync, from what I can tell. From my point of view, this would mean that 5 volts are there, even though I don't see it on the CPU, which is weird. Let's try and open the can of the TED chip. Oh, come on. Snapped right back onto this. This is unplugged, that's good, so I can't do anything particularly stupid. Aha, here we go. There is... Look at this. There is tiny bit of heat sink compound on there. Well, this... I think we can do better, right? We can do better than this. Alright. What I wanted to check was if there is 5 volts on the TED chip. The TED chip has VDD on pin 4, and I think it also has VSS. It should have 2 different voltages. Pin 4 and pin 24. Okay, we can check that. That should be no issue. It's currently in off position, yeah, just to make sure. So what did I say? Pin 4 and pin 24. Pin 4 is over here. And I don't see, should be the other way around, but that shouldn't matter. It's weird, why do I see, it's getting warm, I can feel it. It's definitely getting something. Is this not properly grounded? Could that be the problem? So ground is on pin... Where's ground? Where's ground? Where's ground? I don't see it. Defwords joint. What is the condition of the capacitors? Could there be a discrepancy in the values? Oh, let's not start with the capacitors yet, because that will be quite difficult, I would say, measuring in circuit. The ROMs are getting slightly warm to the touch. The CPU only a tiny bit. Let's check we don't have any image now, do we? No, it's black screen, but video. Where is the frigging ground? I do have VDD. Is VSS the ground? Because it's on this here, so maybe that is. So let's measure between pin 24 and pin 4. Maybe that's how this thing works. And VSS stands for ground in this case. I should probably put this away so we can see it. Okay, that's 4.8 volts, which should be okay-ish. Then let's measure here as well. So it seems that this is not the actual ground, which it is in all the other Commodore machines. And we get 4.83 volts here as well. Okay, good. So we do have 5 volts, even though it's a little bit low perhaps, right? Turn it off again. Good. Tiny bit of progress made. We do have some kind of 5 volts. Hi Elias, stupid question. How about that fuse? That fuse is fine. We can measure it. we do see something, and there are no stupid questions. I have probably less knowledge about this than most of you. So it measures like 0 ohms, 0.2. Or we can test like this. It beeps. So fuse is good. Is fine. I feel that the power supply puts out a little bit of a weak 5 volts. Not sure if there's anything adjustable here. This should be the bridge rectifier, I guess, for the AC. Whatever they produce from that, probably not the 5 volts, because that's coming directly from the power supply. But there's something this here, Q4, that looks like it could be a regulator. Maybe it's a transistor, I'm not sure. Anyway, so we do have 5-ish volts. What we can check is we can now take the oscilloscope, and I'm gonna put myself up over here because I have this scope up here. And we can try and see if there is any activity at pin 14. Pin 14 is address line 8 of the CPU. And that's what the manual says, what you should do. And I'm gonna switch. Okay, we don't get any update because it's in the background. I think now you should be able to see a live update of my scope. Problem is that we probably don't have proper ground. I'm hoping that this is ground somehow. And I'm gonna probe like this. Pin 14, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Yeah. This one here. This one should do the trick. So there's currently nothing. I'm going to switch it on. And it goes to something. It looks noisy, but it looks weird. I don't think that looks super good. This looks also interesting. That's the next in line. That's A7. Let's take a look at the oscillator. Okay, this looks interesting. This looks like 1.7 megahertz. I would think that it's the correct thing. Let's go to auto. Let's have a look at the clock in. FastJack says, if you suspect the power supply, do you have any other compatible power supply? If I remember correctly, the C128 and Amiga 500 power supply had the same square 4-pin connector. I have an Amiga power supply, and this is the clock in at 1.7 megahertz roughly. Looks to me totally fine. Okay, there's good oscillation on that, but the oscillation on pin 14 doesn't look good. Check for good connection at R1 through R7, it says. Okay, we can check that in a minute. Okay, it also suggests looking at pin 4. It's some kind of AEC line, which whatever that is. It seems, you know, that looks pretty decent. Yeah, this looks like some kind of chip enable or something. Looks sort of okay, I would guess. I'm not quite sure what it should look like, but I would say that looks fine. We could also have a look at some data pins. That's 38, and to the left of it, there is something happening. I do see something on the data line. I'm not sure if that is coming from... Oops, careful. Yeah, I think there is some kind of activity on the data bus. But question is that from the CPU or is that the TED chip or something else driving this? There's another pin on the data bus. Not sure if these overshoots are normal. And I would also say that it's again a tiny bit low, right? The high is pretty much 4 volts all the time, except for some other times. Okay, we can check if we have the Amiga power supply, if that helps. It has the square connector, I know that, but the question is, does it have the same voltages? Okay, it will not work. I can already tell you. How do I know that? Because it has 5 pins, not 4. So this will not work. I do have from China on order the round sockets, because these square ones were actually used only for a short time, and then they switched to the regular 4-pin DIN connectors. Or no, I think it's 7-pin DIN connectors for the power, but you can basically put them in this place instead. But they obviously haven't arrived yet. What I would do is I would pull out the CPU and put some deoxit in there and plug it back in, just to make sure that this is not the problem. And just on a hunch, because these CPUs tend to break, I would take out the CPU of the C16, which works, as we have seen in the beginning of the stream, and put that in here instead. Or maybe even better, put this CPU in the C16, because if there's anything iffy with the power supply, it could be that it will break my other CPU as well, and we don't want that. So we can just test this CPU in the C16 basically. And before I do that, this just slipped right back into the socket. Let's see if that actually made a difference, that there was a iffy connection to the ROM chip. Could also mean that there is some problems on the bus and the CPU doesn't get to do what it's supposed to do. But it's still black screen. Still sync and everything, so I think the TED is still fine. My money is on the CPU. Hello.
Damn it.
Damn it.
Hello. I just wanted to throw the blanket on the couch, but there was stuff. So
Yes.
what's happening?
We looked a bit around. The voltages here look a little bit low. It's 4.8 volts on the CPU. First I measured incorrectly. We do see a little bit of traffic on the data bus, but it might be due to one of the other chips.
What do you mean by a little bit of traffic? Is that a good thing or a bad
It's
thing?
good that there's something happening, but and the clock looks perfect for the CPU, but there's no useful signal on the address line, which it seems that the CPU is not driving the address bus. At least there was some weird shapes, and I would say that's not a good address signal.
Then.
So we will take this out.
Ah.
And
everything else was fine?
I'm not super sure.
They have
the
very good
5
hair day. Can you see that?
the 5 volt supply was a little bit low, 4.8 volts. But I think it could be okay, good enough.
Is it that was the weird stuff?
Try the CPU in your C16. Okay, that's exactly what we want to do. Guillermo says the TED may be defective. And that I doubt, Guillermo, because we do have video signal. Otherwise, my little box here would produce a blue
But did
output.
you check the output signal?
No, not
Except
yet.
for the video. Well,
I think because it's producing something that my little box can sync to, it should be fine. And the power supply only works on this machine. So we can't test or swap the power supply until I get the China replacement sockets here for the power.
okay.
Actually, this CPU is... Oh, it's really stuck. Let's
Want
get
me to
some...
do that?
No, yeah, no! Let me break it. Let me break it.
Yeah, you better.
Because then it will be my fault.
But if it's my fault, it's not your fault. I mean...
Oh,
Ugh.
It's...
Do you want to...
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna wash my hands really quick. Yummy.
Let's have a sip. Okay, anyways.
Yeah, let's wait until this dries off a bit. The reason why I'm putting this in the socket right now is to loosen it a bit. Because this is also like kind of grease that helps with getting this stuff out. We already checked the Amiga supply because it has a square connector, but it has 5 pins. So I would say it doesn't fit, and it probably has different voltages.
Yeah, okay, I see.
I wouldn't rule out the power supply. It could still be an issue with that. I'm gonna
But
plug
we
it out.
checked this the other day, right? And
It seems okay, but it could be marginal or something. Who knows?
Anyways.
It at least doesn't go berserk.
Okay.
It doesn't produce voltages way too high. So that's something good. I'm having a bit difficulty getting a grip.
I don't even want to
on
see
this.
that, you know.
Now it's getting
there you
out.
go. That was a nice sound.
Crunchy. Yeah, it's coming out. It's coming out. Oh wow.
I'm just
okay.
going over what people wrote in the chat, and it's just so cool. Now I remember the topic, something with the power supply, right? Yes, also.
Yeah, maybe the power supply, but I'm still thinking it's the dead CPU. Elias says cheap way to fault diagnose a blank screen is to move the chips U25 and U26, which contain the +4 programs, and switch the machine on. Saves buying new TED and CPU chips. Okay, U25 and U26. Thank you, Elias. We can do that. I will put the CPU
Is that
back
the one
in.
we know?
That's Elias.
Oh, hi!
That's the one. Brilliant.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
U25 and U26 are these. It's not a bad idea to kick them out, because nobody needs these. If they are bad, they can produce garbage on the bus and keep the CPU from being able to boot, basically.
Nice.
Okay, this is... I need a pencil. Do we have a pencil?
Yeah, let me get one. It's in
Thank
the
you.
somewhere room. In the somewhat...
In the drawer, yeah.
In the what?
Drawer.
In the bra?
Guillermo says, currently I'm installing a small suitable heatsink on my 486 DLC installed on an M326 Mobo. Ah, okay, that's the one that Nelson designed.
Nelson?
One of the DOS Reloaded users. That's
You say his name like I know him?
5. He sent the tiny little purple board, 386 board last year. Maybe you forgot. It's okay. And this is U26.
Well, anyways, I just wanted to drop by quickly. I'm gonna be a party pooper today and just spend the rest of the evening on the couch. I'm so sorry.
And watching TV. Watching my live stream. No, sadly not.
Yeah, anyways.
It's okay. Thank you for dropping by.
Yes. Oh, public display of affection. Oh, you drink a cola.
Yeah, I already said. So that I don't mess up anything here.
Oh, I rather thought that you're not going to sleep today.
Okay.
Anyways.
This is the CPU.
Enjoy. I hope you find a solution. I might walk in later, but maybe not.
Yep.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Sweet.
So it seems my window only needs to be there for like a few pixels and then it updates. Oh no! Things are falling down. Nothing. Okay, I'm gonna plug in back in the CPU. I'm gonna put a little bit more deoxide on there to be sure that it's fine. Nope, I have a genuine one, but if it breaks, I would give it to Nelson for a rebuild. Okay, that makes sense. So, a little bit of deoxide. This seems like a very cheap CPU socket. So. This is so messy. Let's try not to inhale too much of this. And a very cheap CPU socket. So, plugging this in once more. Just so we can say we tried this. Oh god, this is a horrible socket. They were definitely cheaping out on sockets. I'm very afraid to break the CPU. Okay, I'm double checking the silk screen that I have the notch in the right direction and we don't kill off the CPU accidentally by plugging it in backwards. Okay, it's snapped in place. I will plug in the power supply, which gets a bit warm. So I'm very looking forward to replacing the socket here. The power socket. Did anything smell burnt when you first opened it? No, it definitely smelled just fine, just like roses. So, HDMI capture is on. Still dead. Nothing. Okay, but we eliminated U25 and U26 at least partially to be the culprit, which means I will now remove the CPU again and open up the C16 and we will have a little swap basically. Okay. Very carefully. I hate this socket. That's the CPU. Gonna put this to the side for now. And I'm gonna take the C16, remove the joystick thingamajig. Yes, Elias, it definitely was worth a try. Because replacement CPUs, you can put a 6510 in there with an adapter, but it will have compatibility issues. So if I can, I would love to have a real CPU replacement. There is an FPGA replacement that's, I think, very compatible because it's basically a re-implementation of the 7501. But both the original CPU and the FPGA replacement are 50 to 60 euros. The whole plus 4, if it's working, usually you have to pay more than 100 euros. I paid 50, including the PSU and the dataset for the plus 4. So I think that was a fair price. It was listed as untested, whatever that means. Basically it means broken. Okay. And here we go. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna put aside the multimeter. And I'm gonna turn off the scope for a second. There's the CPU. I put some teeny tiny heat sinks on it. Let's very quickly make sure that it's still working. So that should be that. We need the power supply, which has an annoyingly short lead. I'm gonna turn on the thing here. Is it the same order like on the PC? CPU, graphics, TED, output to monitor? I think the TED is actually more or less the central part of the whole machine. It basically controls the whole machine more or less. I think there's a PLA in there. It's probably this one here. That can break too, but you can get replacements for that. And it's similar to the PLA on the C64, which is also prone to break. So one more try. Let's enable the capture. Let's switch it on. With the old CPU, works. Now, let us unplug everything just to make sure. U25 and U26 are here. I'm gonna put them over there. I'm gonna very carefully lift out the CPU again. Can't even say which one it is, if it's the 7501 or the 8501. Doesn't matter, they are completely compatible. No differences in voltages or anything. Just a slightly different production process. Okay, it's out on one side, not on the other, where there's a stupid capacitor in the way. This one here is actually from mid-1984, so it's a little bit, oh, shucks, it's a little bit younger than our plus 4. Ay, ay, ay. I hate these sockets. Honest to God, I hate these sockets. This was the plus 4 CPU, is what Guillermo was saying. This here is the plus 4 CPU. It's a MOS 8501 R1. And this is the C16 CPU, which is probably a 7501, but as I said, it doesn't matter. They are basically the same. Okay, I'm getting it. Yep, it's finally out. Okay, the notch is to the left, so that's how we're gonna plug it in. Different to the plus 4. In it goes. So we are putting the video back in. Enabling video capture. Guillermo says drums playing. Dead. It is dead. I tell you, the CPU is dead. I'm gonna mark this with an X for now, even though I think that's not necessary because my only other CPU has heat sinks. Bummer. Okay, we most probably have a dead CPU. I'm gonna make it so. I'm gonna put away the C16. Also, you can see how tiny the PCB is. The C16 was really a very cheap computer. It was such a cheap computer. And this is my 64K RAM expansion that you can actually toggle. You can turn it on and off. Also made by the same guys who produced the joystick adapter. Probably made in the Czech Republic, I think. And it's pretty cool. And you can totally reverse this mod. You can take it out again and put in the original chips and everything's fine. So that's really, really neat. Okay, let's grab the wonderful +4 and we leave out the U25 and U26 for a second. So if you insert the known good CPU in the +4, that's exactly what we're gonna do right now. Because I am confident to say that this machine is good enough that it won't destroy my good CPU. Notches to the right, just making sure. Because the TED chip is running happily, producing video sync as it seems. So I think this machine is not so broken that it will destroy my good CPU. Made in Hong Kong. The CPU is made in Hong Kong. Look at that. So I better start shopping around for CPU replacements. So if anyone has a 7501 or 8501 lying around and doesn't need it and it's working, you can get my mail address, my shipping address, taking all donations. Oh, good. So, can I get another drum roll, everyone? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is time for a poll. The poll is no, not that. Will it work? I'm not sure if it's putting out yes or no or ja and nein. So ja is German for yes and nein is no. I'm gonna give you a minute or two to vote before actually plugging this thing back in. Let's see. If that works, it will be a pretty short stream. No, actually not. We already are like almost 90 minutes in, or 70 minutes in. 70 minutes, exactly 70 minutes. So far, yeah, 3 votes. Yeah, currently we're only a few viewers. We lost a couple along the way, but doesn't matter. It seems everybody's saying it will work. Let's try it out, I would say. Let's plug in this stuff here. Good grief. Hope it's not important. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna enable the capture again so we can see. 3, 2, 1, Go! I'm gonna move myself out of the way if I can. Where's the webcam? Here it is. It was the CPU. It's just like with crime stories. It was the gardener or the butler, and with the +4, it's always the CPU. It's always the CPU. Shall we put in U25 and U26? I would say we should do that. Bad CPU, bad CPU. Let's turn off the capture here. This is the friggin' dead CPU, an 8501R1 from the 50th week of 1984. It looks super nice. There's nothing corroded or anything, but at certain times MOS was known to produce crappy chips, and these would fail even earlier than like 30 years in the future. I mean, that this is not working anymore now is like, yeah, tough luck. But I think those were prone to fail even early on. And we should do something about that heatsink here. I don't think I have any of these left. I should probably order a couple more, perhaps, and I can leave the can open. I don't think this whole thing is only for FCC compatibility or something. So that thing is off. Let's put these back in. U25. Notch goes to the top. U26 has a slightly bent pin, so we'll have to rearrange this a bit. These are actually single wipe sockets. That's terrible. They were cheaping out on everything. Are there processors with different speeds? On the +4 not, but actually the +4 and C16 run at 1.7 MHz, whereas the C64 runs at 1 MHz. So yes, the CPUs are faster on the +4 and C16, but yeah, it's not super big, the difference. So let's turn it on again. Turn on the HDMI capture and see. Yeah, and it even says 3+1 on key F1, which we could see if we had the keyboard plugged in, which I will do right away. I will also need to disassemble the keyboard in some fashion to clean it, at least marginally. The connector is also cheap as hell. I hate it. It's the worst connector I've ever used. Okay, here we go. Yay! Hello. Brilliant. The return key doesn't work, it seems. Okay, let's see. Okay, the keyboard is crap. It might be... okay, it might be that I need to clean the keyboard. Yeah, here we go. Okay, 3+1 version something, and then we're in some kind of text processor, I think. Okay, the K works. The K works all the time. The Z also almost all the time. I think there might be some serious cleaning called for. W, Q. Yeah, if I press very hard, it works. Okay, the keyboard needs to be disassembled and cleaned. That's fine. Okay, the cursor keys work fine. Yeah, they are slightly different, I guess. They've got these weird arrow cursor keys, which I love very much. Disassemble and clean time for the keyboard. Yeah, for sure, for sure. But seems to work fine here, just like that. So I'm gonna leave the keyboard unplugged. I think the ribbon cable is still okay. Look at this. Look at this. There's like a band-aid. Commodore was such a cheap company. It's horrible. Yeah, okay. So we will have to take apart this thing. I will have to look that up. There's like a million screws here, which looks like regular... Oh, you can't see anything. Sorry. Brilliant. And I'm gonna unplug the power supply just to make sure that we don't overheat anything. Yeah, bummer. Oh, bit too loud. Can't see because of the screen. Yeah, exactly. So let's have a quick look at the keyboard. There's like a million screws here, and this looks like almost any other keyboard of the era. The C64 keyboards look similar, and I think you can just unscrew this, take it off, and then you can access the plungers. I do have to repair one Amiga keyboard anyway as well. They have these carbon rubber thingies at the bottom that touch two contacts, and over time they get so oxidized or non-conductive that they have too high a resistance for the microcontroller that scans the keyboard, or in this case it's probably the TED chip, to register as key presses. But I do have self-adhesive copper tape that you can put on the plunges so that they make good connection again. Sometimes it's just good enough to clean them. Yeah, but definitely I need to disassemble these. The keycaps are also slightly dirty. It does look quite nice on the screen, but in person this looks actually a bit dirty. Yeah, but what would be interesting now, and I think we should test that. What does the famous address line 8 look like now? Let's move myself out of the way again. I'm gonna put myself over here. And I'm gonna enable the remote for the oscilloscope. And now we're gonna probe again the A8 line, because that's what the service manual said we should test if there's a black screen. And if you remember, it looked kind of weird because there was like this 4 something line with dips just a little bit down, but not fully to zero, to logical zero. So yeah, right now we should just see the CPU doing all kinds of stuff, like decoding things, whatever, putting addresses on the bus basically, and that would hopefully look quite different. So let's, oh god, I have too many cables here, it's horrible. Let's plug this back in. Probably helps if I do it the right way around. Just like that. And then we're gonna probe the clock again. Clock is at 1.2 megahertz now. Okay, maybe that was also wrong. Maybe it's 1.2 megahertz that's actually there. Or we should perhaps readjust. It could be that it's completely wrong because we're way too zoomed out. No, I think... now it works. Yeah, it's triggering in a weird fashion. Oh, it's jumping around. It looks like it's getting different clock inputs. Could that be? I'm zooming in. I want to zoom out. Yeah, it's around 1.2 megahertz now. Maybe that's the correct. Maybe we also had a wrong kind of clock before. That would be weird. But you see, there's like a high frequency clock and a low frequency clock. This is weird. Is this normal behavior? Who knows? Who knows? But that was clock input. And 14 is 2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, 14 should be 2, 4, 6, 7. Sorry that my head is in the way. And this is what the address line looks like normally. And we see dips to 0 and something that actually drives it pretty high. It definitely looks different. I mean, we know that it works. So I guess that means that what we saw before was the wrong behavior. Elias says, had to jump out quickly and how it works. What happened? CPU broken? Yes, CPU broken. Very simple. As simple as that. We have a dead CPU. So I will have to get a new one to have 2 working machines. And U25 and U26, Elias, actually work fine. They don't seem to have any problem at all. FastJack42 says 1.76 megahertz should be the correct clock frequency. Okay, which was what we saw before. Not sure why we see this jumping around of the clock frequency now, but the scope doesn't have like a hardware counter. I think that's all done in software, so I wouldn't be too concerned with that. And in the end, the machine is running, so I think you can't really argue with that. Only thing I will do now basically is to clean off the TED and apply a little bit of fresh heatsink compound, I think, a tiny bit, so that the TED gets a little bit relief here, because this is, yeah, it's still a bit gooey and soft, but I'm also not sure that it's perfectly at the right spot. I do think I have some compound over there. I can use some modern thermal paste. Yeah, very nice. I'm looking forward to getting a CPU replacement. I probably should buy more than one for when the next CPU dies, because I think it's more a question of when than if. But yeah, I'm also okay with the FPGA replacements. I think because the 7501 and the 8501, they are not so common that, yeah, everyone can have an original CPU anymore. Guillermo says, I'm thinking about installing the 8-bit ISA TV tuner in one of the pre-Pentium machines, but it came without looping cable. Okay, so Guillermo is more the PC DOS guy, and he's currently working on building a couple of PCs, it seems. Yeah, no TV cards for this thing. This is basically still a fully 8-bit machine that flopped, but I do like it. You saw what it can do in the beginning of the stream, perhaps. That was a demo running on the C16 at that time. Yeah. Do we have anything else that you want to know about or see? Do I have... Where's the sleeve for the floppy disk? Well, I think I'm out of luck here. Have to search it. Not right now. I do like the machine. I do like both the C16 and the Plus 4. The C116 I think is too rare. It was really not used a lot. I'm gonna turn off the scope because it has a fan. That's pretty noisy. Oh yeah, no, the program is complaining that I just shut off the thing. Yeah, but I like the machine because it shows what could have been with the 8-bit machines, and it's also a weird thing that they basically did just a reiteration of the C64, and it should have been cheaper, but it wasn't because it had reduced functions compared to the C64, except maybe that it had more colors, but the resolution was the same, there were no sprites, and it was supposed to be for text editing. That's why it's called TED. TED stands for text editing. Guillermo says, back in the day, 20 years, I visited a friend so many times to play on the Commodore machines of his dad. Yeah. They are a lot of fun, and especially for the C16 and the Plus 4, there are a couple of nice games. Last year, Bauknecht came out with, not on the Bauknecht name, but it's basically the same people from what I gathered, came out with a game called Lycia, which is a Zelda-like game, I would say, which looks super impressive. It has like a cinematic intro sequence, comes on 4 disc sides, and looks super impressive. If I hadn't have to reassemble this whole thing, we could watch the intro of that, because the keyboard doesn't properly work. We could go for that. Do you want to see the intro of Lycia? Maybe? If so, just write it in the chat. Elias says, out of curiosity, as these CPUs are also similar, can you run a Plus 4 using, say, an 8502 CPU or a 6502 with some rerouting of pins? I said that earlier in the stream, you probably didn't get that. I think there are adapters to run a 6510 from the C64, but there are compatibility issues. So at its core, the 7501 and the 8501 are C6502 CPUs, obviously, but they have pinout differences from what I know. They are slightly incompatible, and there are adapters, but they don't work perfectly fine. So you need an original CPU or the FPGA replacement, which is available in small quantities due to the chip shortage, etc. Guillermo says, yes, please show us. So that means I will leave the C16 as it is. It could be just a lot of dust in there, that's the problem. So we might have to press very hard on the keyboard, but that should be fine. So we are gonna plug in the keyboard again, otherwise I can't boot up the game. It's not auto-booting, and it will be a bit noisy due to the 1541 being a clanky thing. I will have to look for this. The sleeve is over there. Okay. So I'm gonna pick Lycia Disc 1. Lycia the game, I don't particularly like. I don't think it's necessarily a great game. I'm now playing Zelda Link's Awakening on the Game Boy for the very first time in my life, because Soul Sister is a big Zelda fan and she had it lying around, so I thought, oh, okay, let's try it. And I think it's a great game. It has very great game design. Lycia has great visuals, technically absolute masterpiece. But I think the storytelling and the game design are lacking. But that's only my opinion. I know that there are a lot of people who say it's a great game, and you should definitely check it out. It's not only for the Plus 4 and the C16, but there's also a C64 version, which has, in some aspects, worse graphics, because it has not that color depth. In some aspects, it has better graphics, because it has like decorations around the borders and stuff that you can't do on the Plus 4. So there's advantages and disadvantages to each version. I'm gonna pop on the can here real quick, just so that the TED has some kind of heatsink at least. Better than nothing. Gonna pop this back on. Then I'm gonna have to move the probe from the scope aside. Have to fetch this thing. Have to take the floppy cable. There's a lot of things to be done here. Serial port is over here right next to the power. bad CPU. And we're gonna root this in here. Come on. I'm gonna put the snips aside, otherwise we cut some power or something. Alright. I'm gonna re-enable the screen capture. And I'm gonna turn up the sound capture because it also has pretty nice sound. The sound is worse than on the C64 obviously because the SID chip has much better, it has more voices I think and better, it's a better synth chip basically. So that's that. We're gonna turn this on. It hopefully still works. And I'm gonna move myself out of the way again. Just like this, so you can still see me. Okay, it's resetting, that's good. And it should be possible to press F2 to get the deload command, that's very useful. Press the star key, press very hard on this key, and very hard on the return key. And it's, fingers crossed, it's loading. And we're probably gonna just watch the intro because I don't have a joystick plugged in and I won't plug a joystick right in right now. And we hope we can press run. Okay. It registered after the third press or so and run. Oh, there's a little bit of garbage at the bottom.
Made for you.
Gotta pump up the volume a bit. Yeah, it's looking super nice, definitely. So from a technical point of view, it's I think the most impressive intro of any Commodore 8-bit game I've ever seen. And you have to remember that there's no such thing as sprites and the graphics modes are super limited on the TED chip. Because it was actually meant for text processing and not for graphics.
Wake up.
Yeah, that's the intro. It's a game that you can definitely check out if you have a C64 at home. You can buy it. There's also, I think, the possibility to order it as a big box with a cartridge from Protovision, I think. They sell the version here in Germany, and I think Cytronic sells that in the UK. Yeah, but it's we can actually use. Let's see, we can just do New Journey, probably, maybe, or maybe not. Well, anyway, I need to clean the keyboard. Check out the game. It's downloadable for free. This is the free version as it says. The for sale version, I'm not sure if it has any content differences or something from the story. It's super nicely made, but it's just not my cup of tea. I think there are things in the way they tell the story and design the game that I just don't like that much. But you can check it out for yourself. Doesn't cost a dime, and if you like it, you can just buy it for like 40 or 50 euros with a nice big box, a lot of extras, and a cartridge for your C64 or your Plus 4 C16, which is, I think, a very nice thing for a game that comes only in a small number of copies, and you can support the developers and the publishers. Yamo says, would give it a try. Do you know some emulator for my DOS machine until I can get a real Commodore? For your DOS machine, oh goodness. You can get versions of the Vice emulator for DOS, but actually, honestly, I would just use one of the emulators. I would use Vice, or for the TED machines, there's a different one that I forgot the name about, which is more accurate. Vice is best for C64, and you can play the C64 version on your PC, on your laptop, in great quality, and yeah, it's very, very good emulation. And there is an emulator, I think Lukia doesn't run on the Vice TED emulation, because that is a bit like not very well maintained. But there's one, you can Google it, Plus 4 or C16 emulator, you will find it. That does run Lukia for Plus 4 and C16. Yeah, but you can use anything, any of the emulators, and it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, that's Lukia. There are a bunch of other nice games for the series. For example, there's a very nice Arkanoid port that was done like 1 or 2 years back. I love Arkanoid, and I love when there's a version for a new system. Brilliant thing. And I think that's it for today. We tried to go by the book, but at some point I thought maybe it's easiest to just replace the CPU, and it did work. So I will buy a new Yape. Yape is the emulator, exactly. Thank you, FastJack42. So go download Yape for Windows, Linux, macOS, whatever. You can try it on your DOS machines if there's some version or something, but it will be hard, and you need quite a powerful CPU to emulate everything accurately. That's also why there's support on the DOS versions for things like not emulating the SID chip, but using the sound card or parallel port adapter with the SID chip on board, because it takes up so much CPU time. Oh, I just wanted to unplug this, but it's still running, which is fine. But as you can see, now we have this thing running. I'm waiting for replacement CPUs. Then I can get both machines back together. Not sure if I will leave the CPU in this one or transplant it back and keep the C16 more authentic, but it already has a mod, so yeah, I don't know. And of course, I definitely need to clean that keyboard. And that's another thing. The keyboard is completely different from the C64 keyboard, because the C16 has basically a C64 keyboard. Actually, you can have a look. It looks like this on the top right here. And it also has like these tons of screws, but you can take them out and get to the actual key mechanisms, if you want to call it like that. But that's it, I think. If there's nothing else that we can talk about, I would say here it's almost 10 p.m. Will you install heatsinks on both machines, or does it matter? I think I mentioned that earlier. I would install heatsinks. I did on the C16 because I read that the TED and the CPU run relatively hot, and I think it doesn't hurt. Probably, I hope. The Plus 4, as you have seen, has a heatsink on the TED chip. Maybe it's better to just put some of those heatsinks that I have used there and leave the can open, because FCC doesn't care about what I'm doing here. Not sure about that. And the replacement, it depends. If I get the FPGA version, it doesn't require a heatsink, so it will just run like that. And the FPGA version is probably also the more interesting and more future-proof version. So yeah, that's that. Okay, that's it for today. Drop back in for the next stream or for my regular videos that come out very irregularly. And also some more DOS content will be also coming. I do have 1 or 2 things in the pipeline, but not enough time, as always. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to do so. People can also donate stuff or money or whatever, but that happens also very irregularly. And I'm doing fine like that. It's fine. It's just a hobby, but I'm always glad if something comes along. Does help in maintaining these things, because, as I said, the CPU will set me back another $50. So, thank you all for dropping by. Thank you for the nice chat, as always. The live streams are always great. And that's it for today. I will end the stream here and see you next time. Bye.